So we thought we'll start off this conversation by looking at level descriptors and learning outcomes. Now, the level descriptor is a type of learning outcome at the area of the National Qualifications Framework. So level descriptors, they indicate the generic competencies that all qualifications need to develop at all NQF levels. So if you look at an NQF, you will see that there are 2 or more qualifications on the same NQF level. And we use the level descriptor to indicate the comparability of the cognitive levels of the exit level outcomes of the qualification and the generic cognitive competencies. So learning outcomes outside of the framework, you will find those in modules or subjects in NQF qualifications. So they will have learning outcomes and they are made visible by specific exit level outcomes, associated assessment criteria and curriculum content. So the South African NQF level descriptors, we've got 10 competencies across the 10 levels. So we have 100 statements. So these 10 competencies, we see it at every level. It indicates progression. So it will increase in the level of complexity as the learner moves from level 1 to level 10. So we've got scope of knowledge, knowledge literacy, method and procedure, problem solving, ethics and professional practice, accessing, processing and managing information, producing and communicating information, context and systems, management of learning and accountability. So those are the 10 competencies. And we will look for the applied competence across the 10 levels. And the 3 categories are practical competence, foundational competence, and reflexive competence. So there are many uses of level descriptors. So you can use the level descriptors, you can design new study programs, you can write learning outcomes, you can write assessment criteria, you can assess prior learning, you can evaluate qualifications, you can relate modules and qualifications to each other. You can use it for accreditation purposes. You can incorporate non-traditional learning into credit-bearing subjects or modules. And you can assess or determine learning progression at different levels. So the level descriptors needs to be very specific to a specific level at the NQF, and it will assist to place more than one qualification at that same level, as long as it develops the same level of complexity. So the critical crossfield outcomes, this is a characteristic of the learning outcomes. Now these critical crossfield outcomes are embedded in the level descriptors. And I don't want to read through every one, but I'll just highlight the key points. So we've got 7 critical crossfield outcomes, general ones. So it's identify and solve problems using critical and creative thinking, work as a member of a team, organize and manage oneself, evaluate information, communicate effectively. The 6th one is science and technology for the environment and health of others. The 7th one is demonstrate an understanding of the world as a set of related systems. Now, as I said, these are embedded in the South African level descriptors. We also have 5 developmental outcomes, which are also embedded in the descriptors. So the one is to reflect on and explore a variety of strategies to learn more effectively, participate as responsible citizens, be culturally and aesthetically sensitive, explore education and career opportunities, and develop entrepreneurial opportunities. So those are the key concepts in the level descriptors, and it is embedded in the level descriptors. So Dr. Reddy mentioned that the South African NQF is a relational tool. So there are other relational functions that the South African NQF has. So firstly, it is an NQF information system to manage the NQF. And we in South Africa, we call this the National Learners Records Database, the NLRD. It also, we use it to link qualifications to learning pathways. We're very specific. A qualification cannot be a dead end. There must be a clear pathway. The qualification must articulate to something else. We also use it to evaluate foreign qualifications. Then we verify national qualifications. We recognize professional bodies and we register their professional designations. We also do research and we provide advice. So this is a snapshot of the National Learners Records Database as at 30th of September 2020. So you can see that on this database, we've got over 20 million learners. We've got over 17 million qualification achievements. Then we've got over 111 million part qualification achievements. So remember, one learner may have more than one qualification. So that is why the learners and the qualification is not the same. I could have 5 qualifications. I could have 10 part qualifications. And then also, here you see here, learners with achievements through recognition of prior learning. We're very clear about that, and we want to make sure that people are able to access education. You know, Julie spoke about the fractured past before 1994. So now we're making sure that learners with the experience that they can actually, their prior learning can be recognized. So as at 30th of September, we had 99,102 learners that had achieved a qualification or a part qualification through RPL. Then we also keep a record of the assessors, accredited providers, and as we said, a key function is that we recognize professional bodies and we register their professional designations. And you can see here, as of September 2020, we had already registered 105 professional bodies, 384 designations, and then the professionals that actually have those designations, we have over 1 million on the NLRD. In terms of articulation, I think in one of the previous webinars, people were asking, so do people actually articulate between sub-frameworks? Now, we did a study, we looked at the learning pathways between 1995 and 2014, and we looked at, do people really move from one sub-framework to another? So you can see the blue part here, this is General and Further Education and Training Qualification Sub-Framework, and the green is our Occupational Qualification Sub-Framework. Then the yellow part is the Higher Education Qualification Sub-Framework. So in this study, we saw that people are moving from the general and further into occupational qualifications. They're moving from general and further into higher education. But for this particular survey, we never saw any movement from occupational to higher or from higher to occupational. But it's good that we are able to draw these trends. Once you've got information in your National Learners Records database, you can actually see whether people are really moving if you track the qualifications that they are studying. So we also recognize foreign qualifications. There are 3 parts to the process. People apply, then we first verify that qualification. So when we verify, we look at, is the institution an authentic institution? Is it recognized in the country of origin? Then we look at the qualification to see, is that qualification recognized in the country of origin? And then is that institution, does the institution actually have the right to offer that qualification? Then we also look at the award, the documents. We look for any signs of tampering, and we check whether the learner actually received that qualification. So somebody might have, they might have received the qualification, but they might have made the 50, they might have turned it a 50% into an 80%. So we also look for those issues of tampering with documents. And as Julie mentioned, we are also part of the UNESCO Qualifications Passport. Zambia mentioned it in their presentation last week. So this is a way to look at how we will be recognizing the qualifications of refugees and asylum seekers. So after we have verified, because it's difficult to verify qualifications of refugees and asylum seekers, because it will place them at risk if we write to the institution to ask if they had studied there, because we don't know what the reason was that they had left that country. So it's treated with a lot of respect and confidentiality, those kinds of qualifications that we receive. So after we are verified, then we compare the qualification to a qualification on the South African NQF. And we use the South African NQF and its policies as a benchmark when we do that comparison. So after the comparison is done, we issue a SAQA certificate of evaluation. Now, in last week, Miriam spoke to you about the e-certificate of evaluation. So this is our SAQA certificate of evaluation. So we issue the certificate, and this is the seal. You can see the black part here. That is the seal. And by now you know what a QR code is. So this QR code, once you just take a photograph with your cell phone, it will show you who the certificate belongs to. So we are very, very strict about who can apply for the certificate of evaluation. It can only be the qualification holder, because the qualification holder will take responsibility for ensuring that they only share this certificate of evaluation with people that they want to share with. So this is a very exciting new type of seal that we have, where we have the QR code, and the QR code can be shared, the seal can be opened, and also the certificate can be downloaded into a PDF. But the qualification holder has sole responsibility of ensuring that they only share with certain people. So in terms of, we verify South African qualifications. So we've got a verifications project, the verifications directorate at SAQA. And if you go onto the SAQA website and you look for the verifications, you will see that this will come up. So we've got clients in the private sector, and that will be, we deal with them in a certain, we've got a certain way of dealing with them. Then we've got public sector clients, and then there are individual verification letters. We can also provide an extract from the National Learners Records database. Like I can go on and I can ask which qualifications are on the NLRD, but this is not a verified. There's only the top section that is completely verified, and the client will ask for a verification from SAQA. And then search, once you are a client of SAQA, you can do a search to see how far the verifications are, and we get a lot of bulk clients, and there are certain laws and certain policies that have been passed in South Africa that people applying for certain jobs must have a SAQA verification in order to get access to any of employment opportunities. So this is a very good service that we offer, and lots of people make use of it. We also offer it for when clients leave South Africa and they require the verification of the South African qualification. We have a very, very strict counter-fraud focus. The definition of an authentic qualification, we are very clear about it, and in the NQF Amendment Act that is not promulgated yet, we are very clear what the definition is. So it's the provider or the program, the accreditation must be there to offer that qualification. The qualification in South Africa, it must be registered on the NQF, and the qualification holder must be the authentic qualification holder of that qualification. So SAQA takes responsibility for developing 2 separate registers. So we maintain a register of fraudulent qualifications, and we maintain a register of misrepresented qualifications. Now you will ask, what is the difference? The difference is that only a judge can indicate that this qualification is a fraudulent qualification. So only a court of law can determine that. But in SAQA, we can determine that this qualification is misrepresented. And I've given you the example of if a learner perhaps changes the symbols on the transcript, or the learner changes the name of the person. So we can determine that that is a misrepresented qualification, and it will go on to a specific register. We also recognize professional bodies, and we've got a very clear definition of what is a professional body. So it's statutory, established by an act of parliament, or a non-statutory body of expert practitioners in an occupational field. Then we also register their designations, and the designation is the title that is conferred by the professional body in order to recognize the person's expertise and or the right to practice in an occupational field. Nearing the end of this of my section of the presentation, we conduct a lot of research because it is also good to understand whether your NQF is making an impact. So we conduct impact studies to see how we can improve the NQF. So I've just listed some of the key learnings from the NQF impact study of 2014 and 2017. Then we also did some learning pathways research to see how we can improve in this area. In 2018, the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, they conducted an impact evaluation, and we were very pleased to see that they showed that the NQF is embedded and being implemented across the system, even though it was uneven. And in 2020, we are part of a case study of flexible learning pathways. It's an 8-country study, and UNESCO is driving it. So we also identify good examples of national policy framework structures, instruments, and institutional practices. We've been speaking a lot about alignment, and we have completed our alignment to the SADC qualifications framework. If you click on this link, it will take you to the South African National Qualifications Framework Alignment Report, which was approved by the Technical Committee on Certification and Accreditation in May 2019. I will now just mute my mic so that I can go back to Dr. Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coleen. Sorry, Eduardo, how much time do we have left? I mean, I'll go quickly to the last few.
3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I will just go through, I won't go through the details. We have learned some very valuable lessons over the 22 years of the NQF. What we do know is there is no script for this. It is very contextually specific, and it's very meets the individual needs in the country and its people at the space where it's at. Our first CEO, Mr. Samuel Isaacs, was a very wise guy, and he noted when he left SAQA in 2012 that we make the NQF road by walking boldly, accountably, and reflectively, because there is no script for it. One of our critics called it no quick fixes. We have a lot of people who call it a neoliberal construct, have been very critical of it. So we've had our adversaries, and we like to engage with them and hear them, because sometimes the comment is very constructive. I just want to mention quickly Dennis Gunning. He likened this constructing the NQF to a movie in the 1980s called Field of Dreams, where somebody built a baseball field in the middle of a farmland in Iowa. And it said, if you build it and you dream enough and you champion it, people will come. So I thought it is a very instructive quote to also include here. So the next slide, Coleen. So these are key, Coleen. Okay, key lessons learned. The growth in the number of sectoral, national, there's been a growth in the number of sectoral, national, regional, and continental qualifications frameworks. So certainly the numbers, there are over 140 odd NQFs in the world. Qualifications frameworks integrate, and for South Africa, it integrates our system for education, training, development, and work. It's linked to transformation and all the principles I spoke about. Lifelong learning is central to qualifications frameworks. It needs to be understood holistically and look holistically at the individual needs rather than any sectoral or other agendas. There is increased use of level descriptors and learning outcomes internationally. The impact of NQFs depends on a number of criteria. You can see that there are already useful theoretical frameworks for assessing the impact of NQFs, and SAQA has done at least 3 or 4 impact studies. The qualifications framework are catalysts for connecting qualifications, learning pathways, sectors and organizations, and a number of other things. In South Africa, qualifications frameworks are linked to access, redress, learning pathways, mobility, quality, and transparency, as we have shown. It is very important.
I'm not sure if Dr. Reddy is has a connection problem. Coleen, do you know?
Julie, are you still there? I don't know, but let me just try to finish.
Okay.
So on the second last bullet, and if Julie comes in, then I'll just stop speaking again.
Okay.
It is important to allow extended time for full stakeholder participation and inclusivity. And then we also added in the global framework for 2030 that qualifications frameworks needs to ensure learning pathways, etc., etc. And on the last slide, Julie, are you there? If Julie isn't there, then I'll just conclude. So the overarching lessons, lesson 1, we're saying that qualifications frameworks are here to stay. They link education and training systems to lifelong learning. Within NQF's, level descriptors and learning outcomes are used to enhance redress, access, etc. Lesson 2, it is important to assess the impact of qualifications frameworks, and we have several studies show how you can do it. The lesson 3 is that qualifications frameworks need to address system alignment, and so stakeholder involvement and inclusivity are important for the implementation of qualifications frameworks. And then we also said relational agency is needed to implement qualifications frameworks as relational mechanisms. I think that's the end of the presentation. I don't know if Julie's back, but I think thank you very much on behalf of Julie and on me, and SAQA, thank you very much for listening.